In this lesson, we're going to learn how to fly straight and level.
Shall we proceed full speed ahead? Ah, not so fast, rocket pants.
I've got the airplane, so you just relax a bit. We're here in the Cessna 172 in the beautiful Puget Sound region of western Washington. Imagine, if you will, that we've just taken off from Bremerton National Airport just west of Seattle. We're going to learn what it looks like to fly level, how to use the joystick to change our pitch, and lastly, I'll introduce you to your new best friend, besides me, your instructor, of course, the trim wheel. Right now, I need you to check your keyboard and make sure the num-lock light is lit. When that light is on, we can use the keys on the numeric keypad to look around while we fly. Press and hold the 4 key for a moment. See how the horizon is level relative to the windowsill? Release the 4 key and press the 6 key. Those are the Olympic mountains out there. Now, they're pretty, aren't they?
Release the 6 key and look at the attitude indicator.
The attitude indicator displays the airplane's bank, or the angle the wings make with the horizon, and its pitch, or the amount the nose points up or down. I'm going to keep the airplane flying straight, but I want you to change your pitch. That is, the airplane's pitch attitude.
Now then, if you don't have a joystick, be sure to turn the num-lock off again so that you can fly the airplane in just a second when I ask you to. See the little orange dot in the center of the attitude indicator's miniature airplane? This represents the airplane's nose. Right now, it's a little above the white line that represents the horizon. This means we're most likely in level flight, thus holding a constant altitude.
We can tell our altitude is constant by looking at the altimeter, located just to the right of the attitude indicator. The altimeter's large hand, the 100-foot hand, isn't moving, nor is the needle in the VSI, or the vertical speed indicator, moving. This indicates that we're in level flight. Now let's try an experiment. I want you to gently pull the joystick back about ½ an inch from its center position and hold it there. Now watch the response. The nose of the airplane pitches up. The miniature airplane in the attitude indicator pitches up too. Now look at the altimeter. The 100-foot hand is moving clockwise, which indicates that your altitude is increasing. Immediately below the altimeter is the vertical speed indicator, and its needle indicates a climb. Now, pitch the airplane's nose downward with a gentle forward push on the joystick, about ½ an inch from its center position. Hold it there and watch the response. The airplane's nose pitches down, and the attitude indicator's miniature airplane points toward the ground. Notice that the altimeter rotates counterclockwise, thus indicating a descent. The needle in the vertical speed indicator also points downward, indicating a descent.
Okay, return the joystick to its center position.
I've got the airplane, so you just relax a bit. It's safe to say that if the altimeter hands stop moving and the needle on the vertical speed indicator points to 0, then you're in level flight. Of course, if the wings are also level, then you're in straight and level flight. You can always determine how to return to straight and level flight by looking at the attitude indicator when it's not convenient to look outside the airplane. Airplanes are subject to many aerodynamic forces. Some try to pitch nose up, others try to pitch nose down. Use the trim control wheel to keep the airplane in the attitude you want. The trim control, or trim wheel as it's also called, is the little black wheel directly below the heading indicator. It's cleverly marked pitch, up, and down. This part takes a little bit of patience, so you might want to pause the simulator a bit to prepare your mind for the next subject. Press P to pause the simulation, and when your mind is ready, press P again to continue with the lesson.
Right now, the airplane is trimmed to stay at about 100 knots. Even if nobody were at the controls, the airplane would do its best to maintain 100 knots.
If we pull or push on the stick, we have to force it to change that speed. I need you to do that now. Pull back gently on the stick until the airspeed reads 90 knots. Adjust the pitch slightly to maintain 90 knots.
You will notice that we have to make tiny changes in the joystick to maintain 90 knots. But no matter what, you can't let go. If you do, the airplane will pitch down until it finds 100 knots again.
Carefully click the word up on the pitch trim wheel 3 times, or you could press the end key 3 times. Either way, the pointer on the right side of the wheel should be pointing at the middle of the 9 lines on the trim wheel. Oops, you probably noticed that the airplane pitched up rather abruptly when you did that. You should be able to slowly relax the pressure you have been holding on the joystick, and the airspeed should settle at 90 knots.
Speed up.
Whenever we make a change in the pitch of our airplane, like for climbs or descents, we use the trim to remove the pressure we have to hold on the stick. Instead of us having to hold the stick forward or back, we let aerodynamics do the work for us. I've got the airplane, so you just relax a bit.
Okay, here's the big secret about trim. When an airplane is trimmed for hands-off flying and power changes are made, the airplane automatically changes pitch in an attempt to maintain the approximate airspeed for which it was last trimmed. This means that the nose will pitch down when you reduce power and pitch up when you increase power. The airplane automatically changes pitch to maintain the airspeed for which it was last trimmed. So if you want to change airspeed in level flight by adjusting the throttle, you need to retrim the airplane once you're at the speed you want. Let's give this a try. When you reduce the power, the nose of the airplane wants to drop because the airplane still wants to fly at 100 knots. Don't let the nose drop. Keep the airplane in level flight as it decelerates by pulling back gently on the joystick and holding the altitude constant. Right now, the airplane is trimmed for 100 knots at its present power setting. I want you to pull the throttle back and set the power for 2100 RPM on the tachometer. The tachometer is located on the lower right-hand corner of the instrument panel. 2100 RPM will give us a speed of about 90 knots. Now apply sufficient nose-up trim to eliminate the control forces for level flight at 90 knots.
There.
Okay, let's try increasing our speed to 100 knots. Move the throttle forward and set the power to 2400 RPM. This time, the nose wants to rise. Keep the airplane in level flight as it accelerates by applying forward pressure on the joystick. Apply sufficient nose-down trim to eliminate the control forces for level flight at 100 knots.
Speed up.
There you have it. That's how you trim during power changes in level flight. Okay, just to review, we have discussed what level flight looks like, how to use the joystick to change the pitch, how to trim, and how to use the trim while changing airspeed in level flight. Got that? I'm impressed with your performance. These are some of the most important topics in flying. Make sure you're comfortable before moving on. Rerun the lesson if you feel you need to. I don't mind. I'll be here all day, stuck in your computer. I love it in here. In our next lesson, we will learn how to make an airplane turn. Because, let's face it, unless the place you are going happens to be right in front of you, sooner or later, you're going to have to turn. For now, take a break, get up, and stretch your legs and flying arms. You might want to read the next few sections of the ground school, too. I'll be here when you're ready to start flying again. Now that you know what straight and level flight looks like, in this lesson, we're going to learn how to turn. After all, let's face it, unless the place you're going is right in front of you, sooner or later, you'll have to turn. I hope you did your homework before starting this flight. Once again, we're in the Cessna 172 SP in this beautiful Puget Sound region of western Washington. I've got the airplane, so you just relax a bit. Let's begin by looking at the top of the attitude indicator.
Do you see the orange pointer pointing directly above the thick white line at the top of the indicator? This means our wings are level, which agrees with the position of the miniature airplane. The arrow on top points to the bank angle. The bank angle is the angle our wings make relative to the horizon. The three short lines on either side of the fat one represent the bank in increments of 10 degrees. In other words, 10, 20, and 30 degrees of bank. The two short lines way past the 30-degree mark and the horizon are the 60 and 90-degree bank lines. You won't bank that far, though. Now check the heading indicator. That's the one right below the attitude indicator with all the numbers on it. It looks like a roulette wheel with an airplane in the middle. See how it shows W at the top of the dial? That means we're on a heading of west, or 270 degrees. We call it 270 because we get paid by the syllable, and that's the way it's said in aviation. Each big mark on the heading indicator represents 10 degrees of turn, and each small mark represents 5 degrees. North is 0, and it's also called 360. East is 090. We put the leading 0 on to prevent confusion, and south is 180. Watch me make a turn to 090 degrees. That's the E on the heading indicator. And we should check for traffic before we turn. No, I don't mean automobile traffic either. There are no cars up here. I'm speaking specifically of airplane traffic. We don't want to run into another simulator up here on this lesson. As the airplane banks, the wings of the airplane bank with it, and the arrow at the top points to our bank angle. We normally use 20 degrees of bank to turn. There are a lot of good reasons for this, but the most important one right now is because I say so. Some of the wing's lift is being used to turn the airplane, so I'll have to pull back slightly on the joystick to compensate. How much should I pull back? Just enough so that the needles in the altimeter and the VSI don't move. Of course, the higher the bank angle we use, the more we'll have to pull back. As we approach our desired heading, we start to roll the wings level and release the back pressure we've been holding. We have to start a rollout before we get to the heading, or else we'll shoot past it and have to turn back, and all the birds will laugh at us. The higher the bank angle, the sooner we have to start our rollout. With a 20-degree bank, we need to start about 20 degrees before our heading. If we try and roll out at the last minute, we could roll out too fast, and some of our passengers may bump their heads against the window, and that always makes them cranky. In your car, if you make small, smooth changes to the steering wheel, you'll get smooth turns and happy passengers. If you make sudden, abrupt changes, you'll get squealing tires and higher insurance rates. In an airplane, if you make large, abrupt changes with the controls, you'll get unhappy passengers and possibly a bent airplane. Now, if you really feel the need to yank and bank, then get Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator. As long as I'm here with you, however, let's just keep to small, gentle inputs. Now, I want you to make a turn to the left. I'm going to handle the altitude and throttle. That way, you can concentrate on the ailerons. Take the joystick and move it slowly to the left. When the bank angle reaches 20 degrees, let the stick return to center or, if necessary, deflect it as necessary to maintain this bank angle. Gently make tiny changes left and right to hold the bank at 20 degrees. While we are banked, take a second or two to peek outside. It's real pretty in this part of the country. Remember to always keep your primary attention on the attitude indicator. Notice how the horizon line makes the same angle with the panel as the horizon line makes with the miniature airplane in the attitude indicator. One of the primary reasons we have an attitude indicator is so that we know how we are banked and pitched if we accidentally wander into a cloud and we can't see outside. Let's roll back into straight and level flight. I want you to turn right and use a 10-degree bank angle. Notice how the heading changes. The bank angle determines the rate of turn. A small bank angle gives us a small turn rate. A large bank angle gives us
a larger turn rate. Let's roll back into straight and level flight. Good job. I've got the airplane. I'm going to make a turn to the right. While we're turning, look at the turn coordinator. That's the instrument in the lower left-hand corner of the 6 primary instruments. It has a little white airplane on it and a tube with a black ball in the center. The little airplane shows the rate of your turn, and the black ball tells you the quality of the turn. When I say quality, I mean whether the turn is coordinated between the aileron and the rudder. Because the rudder is a difficult thing to master, I'll take care of it for you. But just for fun, look at the black ball. As long as the black ball is centered between the 2 black lines, we're making a coordinated turn. Some people call this black ball and its track the inclinometer, and I'm inclined to do the same. When the ball is deflected right or left of center, we should use the controls to maneuver it back to the center position. There's one more thing about the heading indicator I think you should know about. You may have noticed an orange pointer moving around it. This is called a heading bug, despite the fact that it doesn't have any legs. Professional pilots often set the heading bug to the heading they want to fly before they start a turn. That way, they don't forget where they're supposed to be going in case a real bug enters the cockpit and distracts them while they're swatting it. Of course, there are other distractions too, like talking on the radio, maintaining altitude, and adjusting our cool sunglasses. I want you to try moving the heading bug indicator to a specific heading. Start by pointing your mouse at the knob on the lower right-hand side of the heading indicator. The mouse pointer changes to a hand with a minus or plus sign inside as you pass it from the left side of the knob to the right. Clicking the right side of the knob moves the heading bug clockwise and the selected heading increases. Clicking the left side of the knob moves the heading bug counterclockwise and the selected heading decreases. As you do this, you'll probably notice that the airplane banks toward the bug. Yep, you've discovered my secret. The heading bug is how you tell the autopilot which heading to fly. That's another good reason to use it often. So you now know how to turn the airplane. Combine that with the other lessons in the student pilot lessons and you're well on your way to piloting an airplane anywhere you want to go.
I'm going to tell you now about the bugs that are in Lesson 3 and how to fix those. 2 bugs. 1, the lesson will never end unless you fix the code in the script file. And 2, there are 6 sound wave files missing. They originally came on the Flight Simulator 2002 and they were never ported over. In the student lesson file of Lesson 3, you have this ABL file, and we're going to open that and go down all the way to the bottom. This section right here will say case wait. Change that to case end and you're done. Sound files that are played right here, 61 through 66, are missing. You don't get to hear any of Rod's further instructions, though with the captions on you can figure out what he wants and you can complete the lesson. But if a new pilot's off task, some of the texts go by so quickly or aren't shown at all. Combined with the no ending, a new pilot can complete the lesson but be left wandering the area wondering if you did and what to do next. Repairing the sound files, you get 6 additional instructions or comments from Rod. They help you stay on task. Combined with the end game bug fix, you get the intended experience. So to restore the sounds, you restore S3-61.wave through S3-66.wave from the original Flight Simulator 2002 discs if you have them. I don't. Many of us don't. So I got someone who did. Made a video playing them one at a time, and I re-recorded them with Windows Sound Recorder, so they're not the quality of the originals, but at least they are raw and the exact verbiage. If you're watching this video, you can re-record them from here or write down the verbiage and record your own voice saying it. If you use the default Windows Sound Recorder, convert the WMA files to WAV files. I just use VLC Media Player. It has a convert function. So copy your files into the FSX Sound Lessons folder, If you've repaired the end game bug with the case end statement, you're good to go.
In this lesson, we're going to go through some of life's little ups and downs, but in airplanes we call them climbs and descents. We're going to learn more about the relationship between pitch and power and how you use them to climb or descend in the airplane. We're also going to learn a little bit about the flaps and how you use them. As always, because this is a simulator, we'll use the attitude indicator as our primary reference instrument. So take a look at it to see what it's telling you. It shows that we're in a straight and level flight attitude. A quick scan of the other instruments will confirm this. Check the tachometer on the lower right-hand corner of the instrument panel for the power setting. This shows your current power setting is about 2400 RPMs. Climbing an airplane consists of 3 steps. First, we'll establish the proper pitch attitude. In this airplane, that's about 12.5 degrees nose-up pitch. Next, we'll apply power, as in push the throttle forward. Then we'll trim the airplane. Anytime we enter a climb, we always, and that is always, do these 3 steps in this order. We change the attitude first, then power next, then trim last. Think of this as a mantra, and your aviation kung fu will always be strong. Watch as I demonstrate a climb to 4,000 feet now. Pay attention to how I adjust the attitude first, then power next, and finally the trim last. I begin by raising the nose to an attitude that I know from experience is proper for the climb. In this case, it's approximately 10 degrees nose-up pitch. I push the throttle all the way in because in most small airplanes we always climb with full power. As the nose comes up, the airspeed begins to decrease. To learn about why this happens, read the ground school section on climbs and descents. When the attitude selected gives me 75 knots, I give it enough nose-up trim to hold the airplane in this pitch attitude. And that's it. No smoke or mirrors involved here. Besides, this is a no-smoking flight. Each airplane has a speed at which it will climb most efficiently. The manufacturer normally determines this for you. In this airplane, it's between 70 and 76 knots. But we'll use 75 knots because that number is easier to find on the airspeed indicator. As the airplane approaches within 200 feet of the assigned altitude, I begin leveling off into straight and level flight again. Remember, attitude, power, and trim in that order. I gently push the nose over to level off, thus selecting a straight and level flight attitude on the attitude indicator. Next, I adjust the power, but since I want to accelerate to cruise speed, I'll leave it at full power until reaching a cruise speed of 100 knots. When reaching this speed, I'll reduce power to 2400 RPM. Finally, I'll trim the airplane so that I don't have to work so hard. Okay, now that you've seen how it's done, it's your turn, Maestro. I want you to try a climb. Since I'm your instructor, I'm going to help you out a bit by controlling the bank. All you need to do is worry about the climb. Okay, you've got the controls. Begin by selecting the proper attitude for a climb, which is about 12.5 degrees of nose-up pitch, which is between the second and third hash marks on the attitude indicator. As you do this, I want you to add full power. Yes, you can do this as soon as you start raising the nose. Make small, and I do mean small, adjustments in pitch to give you a climb speed of 75 knots. If the airspeed is too slow, then lower the pitch attitude a degree or 2. If the airspeed is too high, then raise the pitch attitude a degree or 2. Remember, attitude, power, and trim in that order.
push the throttle in more. Speed up.
They get retrimmed.
Excellent job. Let me take over for a moment and hold 5,000 feet while I talk to you a bit about descents. A descent is a little different from a climb. As we select a nose-down pitch attitude, we simultaneously reduce power. Remember, with power reduced, we have no choice but to come down. That's why there are no gliders stuck up in the air. We do, however, have a choice of the speed at which we want to descend. We'll make all our descents at 90 knots. Of course, we always use trim to make the airplane easier to fly too. If we desire, we can adjust our rate of descent using the power. But for our purposes, we'll make all the descents with the throttle pulled all the way back to its idle position. Don't worry, the engine won't quit when we do this. In the descent, we don't have to pitch over very much at all. In fact, you'll almost never need to pitch down more than about 2 or 3 degrees below the horizon. With all that in mind, I think you're ready to try a descent. Remember, think attitude, power, and trim. Also remember that, with the power reduced to idle, you'll need to make a small adjustment in the attitude to give you an airspeed of 90 knots. If you're going down too fast, raise the nose just a bit, hold it there, and see what happens to the airspeed. If you're going down too slow, lower the nose a bit, hold it there, and see what happens to the airspeed. Repeat this process until you're descending at a speed of 90 knots. Ready? I'll keep the wings level for you during this descent. You worry about pitch, power, and trim. Okay, pull the throttle back to idle and descend at 90 knots to 4,000 feet. Level off there, then we'll discuss flaps.
Good. Retrim. Stay low.
All right, you did a fine job, Captain. I think it's time we talk about flaps, which isn't something we do with our arms when we want to fly. When it's time to land, we don't want to land fast. No sense burning the tires off our airplane. Besides, a slower landing speed makes the airplane easier to control during touchdown. We don't, however, want to fly too slow because we'll end up stalling and this could put a dent in your day and the airplane as well. Most airplanes have flaps on the wings to allow them to fly slower. Flaps come with a price, though. They increase the drag considerably. This is why we use them specifically for landing and, on rare occasions, for takeoffs. This airplane has 4 flap settings: up, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and 30 degrees. Normal landings are made with flaps at 30 degrees. Notice that the flap selector is displayed on the bottom right-hand corner of the panel under the tachometer. The white pointer on the right is the flap position indicator.
Each time you press the F7 key, the flaps will extend 10 degrees more. F6 retracts them 10 degrees at a time. Now I want you to practice extending the flaps while we're in a power-off descent. Our goal is to be in a power-off descent at 65 knots with the flaps fully extended. You'll find that the nose of the airplane wants to pitch up as the flaps are extended, so you'll need to lower the nose in order to keep the airspeed from getting too slow too quickly. Feel free to let the airspeed decay below 90 knots since we're looking for an eventual descent at 65 knots. Ready? I'll keep the wings level for you while you control the pitch, power, and trim. Okay, reduce power to flight idle and begin a descent at 90 knots. When your airspeed is below 110 knots, the maximum flap extension speed for 10 degrees of flaps, press F7 once. You can watch the selector move when you press F7 and watch the indicator move to show the current position of the flaps. Raise your flaps. Adjust the pitch to maintain 65 knots of airspeed. You'll need to get that nose fairly low to maintain a speed of 65 knots. Make sure you trim to keep the airplane at the desired attitude and airspeed. Now I want you to add a little power and reduce your rate of descent on the VSI to 500 feet per minute. Use the pitch to control the airspeed and the power to control the rate of descent. You should find that around 1800 RPM will maintain that rate of descent. This is excellent practice for the landing approach that we'll be studying in an upcoming lesson. You need to be able to control the rate of descent as you approach the runway. Using power allows you to do this. When we reach 3,000 feet, I want you to transition from a descent with flaps to a climb. This will be quite a challenge for you, but I think you can do it. Remember, I'm keeping the wings level for you here. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Raise the nose to climb attitude and simultaneously add full power to climb. Now, don't let the nose come up more than 5 degrees above the horizon at first. You'll need to apply a lot of forward pressure on the joystick. Now we need to begin raising those flaps, so press the F6 key once to retract the first 10 degrees of flaps. Let the airplane stabilize and begin to accelerate, then press the F6 key again. Keep the airplane at a lower 5-degree pitch-up attitude so that it will accelerate quickly. Now, press the F6 key again to get rid of the last 10 degrees of flaps and adjust the attitude to give you a climb speed of 75 knots. Finally, trim for a climb speed of 75 knots. Congratulations! You've just simulated making a missed approach from a landing, which is what you would do if you get to the runway and there's something else on it, like another airplane. Okay, let's climb back to 5,000 feet and we'll turn to a heading of 270 degrees. I've got the airplane, so kick back while we climb to altitude.
Elusive.
When we get to 5,000 feet,
missing
I'd like you to try
dialogue.
a descent, but with a twist. I want you to make a descending turn to the right. This means that you'll not only need to adjust the pitch to maintain an airspeed of 90 knots, but you will also have to control the bank as well. Up till now, I've kept the wings level, but it's your turn to do it all. Just like in level flight, when you enter a turn, you'll have to change the back pressure on the joystick to maintain the desired airspeed. I want you to use 20 degrees of bank for all your turns.
Coming up on 5,000 feet while flying a heading of 270 degrees. I'm giving you control of the airplane. Ready?
We go.
I want you to enter a descent and maintain a heading of 270 degrees. Lower the nose and simultaneously reduce power to flight idle. Select the attitude that will give you a descent at 90 knots and trim the airplane.
Speed up.
Commander, you're looking good. Now I want you to enter a right turn at 20 degrees of bank. Use the miniature airplane's orange ball to calibrate the airplane's pitch attitude. Raise or lower the nose as is necessary to keep the airspeed at 90 knots. You're doing fine. When you reach 4,000 feet, I want you to continue the descent, but roll directly into a turn to the left at 20 degrees of bank. Keep the airplane at the same pitch attitude you had before.
Bank the wings more. Speed up. Bank the wings more.